Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. My name is Kevin. I will be your captain, and I'd like to introduce our crew of this Union Federation starship here. With me, as always, of course, is my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. He's, co-captains as well, security and weapons officer, and occasional cleaner of the P Corner. Please welcome my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's going on, buddy?
This whole podcast is illogical. There's absolute chaos everywhere. A P Corner, human smell. That's just. I don't know if I can survive on this podcast. It's just the emotions are too much.
You can do it. You can do it. And of course, returning with us as usual is the Oracle and the Science Officer, Miss Haley Stoddard. How are you doing?
My name is Doug.
Doug, sorry.
I'm doing well. Glad to be here, as always. I do have to share, I'm wearing a Enterprise.
Oh, like the Enterprise car rental place mashup logo.
Rent a Starship.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. The Enterprise logo / Starship. That's great. I love that. It's very close. It's funny. I actually, when I rent locally, I rent from Enterprise. So, well, guys, we are celebrating, of course, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds here on the Union Federation podcast and the BQN. If you get to see the QR code there, make sure you check it out. Give it a little click, and it'll take us to our website with all of our other wonderful programs that also include the Union Federation. And we are talking Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3. We're almost towards the end of the 10 episodes, and we're already on 8. It's weird, right? Am I counting that right? 8?
Yeah. that double week, that first week double episode was kind of got everybody thrown off. Again, so logical.
It feels like it's sliding by. It's a trip. We also want to let you know, make sure you go check out our previous episodes of Union Federation discussing this current season of Season 3 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We also want to tease, though, our next limited series run of podcasts, Star Trek related, of course, here on Union Federation Fandom Podcast Network, is we're going to be discussing the Star Trek Q Fan Collective, Star Trek Q Fan Favorite Episodes. So we're looking forward to that. Make sure you check that out. But we are episode 225 of Union Federation discussing Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 3, Episode 8, 4.5 Vulcans. Yes, 4.5 Vulcans. Let's get into our first away mission. Now, we want to warn everybody, please, this is a spoiler show, so please make sure you adhere to Wesley here on the YouTube, that this is your spoiler alert. We have the Admiral's Log episode synopsis. Now, this is optional for you, Haley, because you're going to read this for us. If you would like, you can say it in your best Vulcan voice cadence, just like Pike did, if you want, but you don't have to. But I would really like it if you did.
All right. Aim to please, as always.
Yeah.
For a mission, Pike, Chapel, Uhura, and La'an are transformed into Vulcans. But their transformation backfails, and they eventually decide to remain Vulcans. Pike becomes obsessed with efficiency and neatness. Uhura manipulates Beto into accepting a mind meld. Chapel cuts off all her friendships and her relationship with Corby. And La'an develops Romulan tendencies, becoming a sinister warmonger. At a meeting regarding Batel's request to return from medical leave to her job with Starfleet Judicial Department, Pike tells Admiral Pastalk that her return would be illogical, and Batel loses her temper with both. Scotty and James Kirk, on leave from the Farragut, become friends while working together to stop La'an. With the help of Una's Vulcan ex-boyfriend, Doug, Spock connects with his friend's spiritual essence, or Katra in Vulcan terminology, and persuades them to turn back. Embarrassed and horrified, the four make amends for the way they treated Spock and the others. Much to Batel's surprise, Pasok offers her a promotion to head of the Judicial Department, following his impending retirement, having been impressed by her outburst. Make sure you stick around, though, through the end credits and see more rifts between Spock and Doug that are really funny. In the post-credit scene, Spock is teaching Doug how to be more human, including how to use contractions, such as it's instead of it is, and I've instead of I have, with Doug having great difficulty learning how to use them. These contractions are illogical.
However, that was the most logical Admiral's Log ever.
Well done, Haley. That was great. That was so cool. All right, Kyle, let me start with you. Your first reactions to 4.5 Vulcans.
I wasn't sure about this episode when it started because I knew this was coming. I had seen it in trailers and them talking about it, and it grew on me as it went. It was one of those episodes where I'm like, I'm not sure about the start of this, but then especially seeing how they acted as they each became more Vulcan in their different ways was so much fun. And the fact that it was so drastically different for each of them, which I found so good. And there was just, you could tell they were just letting their hair down and having some performances. And I got to give a hats off to Rebecca Romaine and how she was around Doug, because that was one of the funniest things I've seen in Star Trek in a long time.
Oh, yes, the ex-boyfriend. Haley, your first reactions to 4.5 Vulcans.
This is going to be the best band ever. It's my new cover band, I think. So I have to say, like, that's immediately like what I thought of. I was like, best band cover name ever, 4.5 Vulcans. And so, yeah, no, again, because I don't watch anything, I had no clue what was going to happen. And so I love going into the episodes like this, honestly, because then nothing is spoiled and I can just be pleasantly surprised and enjoy the ride for what it is. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. I think it's interesting how, taking and not only making them Vulcan, but making them fully Vulcan, it brings out these tendencies that our characters already have, but it makes them more pronounced, right? And that's quite fascinating because, you can kind of take that and look at yourself and say, okay, what is something that I have really at my core? What is something that at my core that is so important to me? And that would probably be the thing that would be coming about if you became Vulcan. So it would make for a very interesting episode if most of the crew turned into Vulcan to see what chaos ensued. But I thought this was a great way to explore something and also just the efficiency, right? I mean, people make fun of Vulcans for their efficiency and, what we see happen with Nurse Chapel and all their experiments and being illogical and looking at logic. But I liked that it was from this perspective of humans turning fully Vulcan and, just what is important. It's quite interesting.
I like when Pike puts his hands to it, says, I made horrible decisions.
Yeah.
That was great.
This podcast will only be 42 minutes.
Exactly. So I wanted to share this picture I found on Star Trek Reddit here. The 4.5 Vulcans. If you're watching the video, it's very funny. It's someone doing the Spock Vulcans, salute. With poor old Spock being the thumb because he's the half Vulcan, which is very funny. Thought that was very funny. Just some other observations real quick. I want to talk about the laugh out loud moment with that the newly Vulcanized crew power walk through the ship's corridor, which was done to the song "The Home of Happy" by the Reckless Youth, to be transported room. It took longer than the actual mission. And of course, Pelia's comedic timing from the bridge is spot on and complaining about how they made her look bad. I thought that was very funny. And of course, that famous end credit scene, that was just complete joy there. And I just, my favorite part was Vulcan Doug, pull on the finger. Spock, that is correct. Vulcan Doug pulls on Spock's finger. Spock, and the flatulence. I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't. I just went into another episode. I didn't really get any spoils. Apparently, and we'll touch on this a little shortly later, this episode was spoiled, or a little bit of the characters turning into Vulcans last year at Comic-Con. Not this year, but last year. And I didn't know that. So I'll touch on that a little bit later. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. how everyone had their moments, how either being a Vulcan or dealing with the new fresh Vulcans, which was a lot of fun. So let's get into some Star Trek trivia. All right. So, Kyle, why don't you go ahead and hit us with the first bit of trivia there? This is really cool.
Yeah, this isn't Patton Oswalt's first rodeo with Star Trek. This is his second time with the franchise. The first was voicing Spot 73 for Star Trek Picard. Spot 73 was the creation and pet of Dr. Agnes Girardi in the alternate 2401. He was a digital artificial life form in the form of an animated talking cat. And he has also wrote a comic book story of Star Trek for IDW, Star Trek number 500.
I think he's a Star Trek fan. I'm just going to go out on a limb. So, yeah, there you go. Haley, why don't you hit us up with this next one here? I thought this was great.
Yeah. Primanti 3 appears to be named for Primanti Brothers, a popular chain of sandwich restaurants originating from Pittsburgh in the eastern USA, known for inserting French fries into their sandwiches, just like the sandwiches from Primanti Ortegas gushes over. Okay, I don't do fries or chips, but I do love like taking like a turkey sandwich and putting potato chips in it. That crunch. Oh.
I am a huge fan of French fries, or chips as they call it in Australia and the rest of the world. I would totally do this. And I actually there's a nice Mexican food place called Super Cucas right near me. And it's kind of a little local chain. And they actually have a burrito with French fries in it. It's so good.
All I know is I'm hungry now looking at that picture.
Primanti 3, I would totally go there, and also would go to the Primanti Brothers as well. So that's cool. All right. Why don't you go ahead and do the next one there, Haley, and I'll do the fourth one.
Chappell says La'an and Spock are a better match, likening the pair to broken pieces fit together like the ancient Earth practice of kintsugi, referring to the Japanese art of mending broken pottery, usually with gold. Huh. That's really pretty.
Did not know that. That was a cool little shout out there. So, yeah. Okay. I'll get the last one here. Strange New Worlds episode 4.5 Vulcans features a scene where the whales of the Cretacean ops are visible in the science lab, but this occurs within La'an's Noonien Singh's mind. The scene appears during a mind meld where Spock enters her Katra space to convince her to revert from her Vulcanized state. Did not catch that, so I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into the next away mission here, Ned. All right, this is where we will get into the main episode discussion with our first mission report. And I want to start off with a nice article. I always find great articles here that create discussion points here at blog.trekcore.com. And they start off by saying, in most comedy episodes of Star Trek, the humor served the story. Let me start over, please. Blah, blah, blah. In most comedy episodes of Star Trek, the humor serves the story. But in 4.5 Vulcans, the story serves the humor. That's not going to work for everyone. A lot of people like their Star Trek a little more straighter than it's served up here. But viewed through the lens of Star Trek franchise, playing around new genres and episode types, I wholeheartedly embraced 4.5 Vulcans as the riot fest that it is. This episode arrives with odds slightly stacked against it. Paramount Plus released a 5-minute clip from early in the episode featuring the character's transformation into Vulcans over a year ago at San Diego Comic-Con in 2024. And the reaction online was mixed. Some fans found it hilarious, but a number found the clip and its implications for Vulcans varying degrees of objectionable. Fans complained about the interactions between newly Vulcanized Pike, La'an, Chapel, Uhura, and Spock, objecting to the hint of racism that existed from the now fully blooded Vulcans towards the half-human Spock. They are also objected to how quickly the new Vulcans adopted their logical personas, given those personas are not genetically Vulcan but a social construct of the species. What's interesting, I got invited to a Facebook chat by this episode from a certain Star Trek group because I had gone to their group before, and I accepted it because I was kind of curious what they were saying. And man, all of it was negative. I'm like, what the hell? I got right out of that chat. I was bummed about that, but I really enjoyed it. So I got a 2-part question for you here, and I'm going to start with you, Haley. How do you feel about the comedy that was delivered in this episode? But more importantly, who was the best Vulcan between Pike, Lon, Uhura, and Chapel, in your opinion?
So I want to address something because, as most people who know me know, I ascribe to the Vulcan way. And now, anyway, so I don't think that this necessarily was bad. If people are upset about these characters becoming Vulcan, there was a reason behind it, right? They couldn't go down to the planet and they couldn't do this mission as humans. It just wasn't allowed. And so how many times in Trek do we see our crew members having to figure out how to help a society and fix something while hiding how they really are? I mean, you know, we get Deep Space Nine, they turn into Klingons. And I know we're going to touch on this, but I can understand where some people might not like it. But at the same time, I don't think it was necessarily a negative. It wasn't racist. I mean, yes, they were harsh towards Spock, but Spock had already grown up with this. We've already known that Spock had dealt with, you know, people saying, oh, he's not a Vulcan for a long time. So as far as the comedy goes, I think it was great. If we look back at TNG and we look at Worf was comedic, but unintentionally, right? And so I think it was funny in the sense that, yes, these were very serious because Vulcans are always portrayed as very, very serious. But that's because it is so funny in contrast to the rest of our crew who have to deal with these people who are like, no, it's got to be this way and it's got to be this way. And those struggles of dealing with people who are highly logical or, in Lon's case, kind of illogical. And so I thought it was perfectly delivered. I love their reactions when they first get the serum, and Pelly is like completely fine and talking about the times that she did LSD, you know, even just like a month ago. And the rest of them are just like, oh my God, they're so overwhelmed, right? And I love that. I think just because that was funny, but it also goes to show that, yes, Vulcans do have emotions. They just don't get ruled by them. As far as best Vulcan, I'm going to give it to Chapel.
Good one. Okay. I like that. All right. Kyle, what say you? How do you feel about how the comedy was delivered in the episode? And then please give me who you thought was the best Vulcan.
I think they had fun during the episode, and this could have gone in a way where it was much more negative. And I think the people who are looking at it negatively are paying attention to some of the things that have happened already with the show, and also some of the things that they even said about how the serum was derived and how it had affected their change and put them in a certain position that wouldn't be the normal situation. And so I think people just need to come to break just a little bit here, guys. Let's have a little fun. Not everything has to be 100% serious. And I think they handled the comedy very well. And I was kind of skeptical. I mean, I didn't know how they were going to pull this off. And I think they had you could tell they were having fun doing it. As for best Vulcan, I kind of have a twist on this. The best pure Vulcan was Chapel. There's no question about that. And somebody needs to hit Spock upside the head and say, see, it doesn't matter if she's human or Vulcan. She's going to dump you either way, apparently. So move on. But the best performance was Leon, because she went a little more Romulan and went over the top, and her performance in this episode was so much fun.
Well said. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasant surprise. I actually ended up paying a lot of attention to the episode, where like some of their episodes have a serious tone, kind of like, okay, you know, it's going to get serious. But I really was like, okay, where are they really going with this? And I was really surprised how quick that away mission was. I'm like, what the hell are they going to do for the rest of the episode if it's not like in a big away mission? And then I like, okay, I see what they're doing here. They're going to have fun with the relationships. I'm going to go with Pike. Pike was great. I thought he was the best for reasons we'll probably get into a little bit later. But I just loved asshole Vulcan Pike so much. I thought it was great. I just wanted to see Pike do more. I hope he does it at a convention, and I think that would be fantastic. I just thought it was great. All right. Well, I just want to mention there's some parallels, obviously, from this episode when we have other Star Trek crew members masquerading as other species, and of course the fantastic two-part episode of TNG where Data and Picard dress up as or masquerade as Romulans, and then of course we have the famous Deep Space Nine episode as well. That one is the Apocalypse Rising, where we get Cisco and Odo and O'Brien masquerading as Klingons. And I just remember O'Brien was horrible. He just was not a good Klingon. But I'll tell you, Cisco, boy, did he get into the role. He sold me. So I thought that was really cool. I did want to mention a little bit regarding another article about the take on this, as one of the things that this episode taught me. This was from Geek Girl Authority, that playing a Vulcan is not something just any actor can pull off, such as my big whiff on the episode is Mount's performance as a Vulcan. It read to me as he was playing a nasally nerd rather than Vulcan. I like the idea of Vulcanized Pike narration over the opening credits, but again, it felt more like a Big Bang parody than a genuine Vulcan performance. And she kind of goes on to clarify a little bit, and I'm like, I understand how people might say all that, but man, boy, was it entertaining. So I'm going to respectfully disagree. But I can see where people were not feeling it, and they want more of a straight-edged episode as opposed to a fun comedy episode. So I get that. So, all right, guys. Well, the next mission report here is your thoughts on the relationship between Una and Doug the Vulcan, who I'm just going to refer to as Doug the Vulcan here, a.k.a. the Katra expert, a.k.a. Una's ex. This was very funny. It was also, I got to be honest with you, kind of charming as well, especially when they do the typical fake relationship with Spock to make things not seem to be too weird. And then, of course, Vulcan Doug sees right through that when he's talking to Spock, which I thought was great. Give me your thoughts on this relationship. Start with you, Haley.
Yeah. So, he's this Katra expert, right? I think that's where this connection lies between Una and Doug. They have this history, they have this Katra connection, and we don't know exactly what it is, but it
sounds sexy. I'm just saying.
Yeah. They're just incredibly
# Vulcan sexy.
Yes. Just incredibly drawn to each other. And I actually really loved it because you kind of get at the beginning of the episode when La'an and Una are talking, and she's like, no, I'm just going to stay on the ship. No, and you're just like, oh, there's an ex that she doesn't want to run into. And I thought initially maybe it was a bad breakup and all that kind of stuff. And in essence, it's completely the opposite. It's just that they have such a powerful connection that nothing else matters when they're around each other. And I love that, because relationships should have that kind of connection where, yes, you're aware of other people and you don't forget everything, but at the same time, you're so connected to each other that you just know each other so well and so deeply. And I thought that was great. And I totally was not expecting Patton Oswalt.
I know, right?
Whatsoever. I don't know what I was expecting it to be, but it was not Patton Oswalt, but it was great.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on this relationship? I found it one of the more endearing ones recently.
It was a lot of fun, and it was honestly one of Rebecca's best performances in a while on Stranger Worlds. It's always felt like Una's been in the background for quite a bit, and to do what they did with her in this episode, and to have her playing off Patton Oswalt, who is just beloved everywhere, was so good. And just the comedy chops that we got to see from Rebecca Romaine in this, and even Ethan Peck, who played this brilliantly as he's just kind of thrown into this, Spock is thrown into this situation. This was just pure fun, and just how, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to change when I see him, and please don't tell anybody else. And just how over the top she goes, and just how she loses control of everything was brilliant. And I just love this. So
we have 2 kids. 2.
Yeah, 2.
Shout out to Kimberly Campbell in the chat. She says, I love this episode. Thanks for tuning in, Kimberly. Really appreciate that. I did too. I love this episode too. And I love this relationship. And I'm a huge, huge fan of Patton Oswalt. I've loved him in everything he is. He's a very funny guy. He's done a lot of really funny things in movies and TV series. he lost his wife to cancer, and he's come around. He's cherished her memory, and I just want, and I feel like that when they approached him doing this, or whatever happened with this, he was just like, oh yes, please. And you want me to play a Vulcan? Thank you. And I just feel like he just fit right in here. And let me tell you right now, I want to see more of this character because I think it would be funny. I think it would be great. I mean, for whatever reason, there was absolutely really no reason to have Lieutenant Kirk in this episode. And I saw a funny meme where it showed Pike going, "Why are you always on my ship?" Referring to, but it served a comedic thing, and it also served more bonding moments with his eventual, of course, head of engineering, Scotty, which I thought was great as well. So I thoroughly enjoyed this relationship between Doug the Vulcan and Una. I want to ask you guys about this. I thought this was very funny. Probably speaking on what we might say to a very frustrating, newly minted Vulcan who's being a dick to you. Mission Report 3 is your thoughts on the relationship challenge of Captain Patel and Ensign Mounts Christopher Pike. And I just want to throw a couple of quotes that she does in this this scene between her and, of course, this other Vulcan. It says, "Listen, ears," quote, "you called him the human with inappropriate hair, and your sorbet sucks." Haley, I want to get your thoughts on this scene here.
Well, and it's fun because we get a contrast, right? We get earlier they're interacting and they're, she's doing some combat fighting and things like that. And Pike's been there for this whole journey of her, with everything she's got to do as far as keeping these Gorn DNA babies at bay. And so I really loved it. I think it was great that, she finally has it and lets out what she's been thinking, not only to Anson, to Pike, but to Pasalk. And she wants to come back to work, and Pike's like, no, she's not ready. It's illogical. She's got all these things that she needs, and it's just going to take away too much time, and yada yada. And I loved it. I love that she stood up for herself and defended herself. And then Pasalk comes back at the end, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to offer you the job. You're going to be my successor." And I appreciated that sincerity and that openness that you had with me, which is really quite actually very Vulcan, that honesty and that essentially logical approach to the issue. And so I loved that, it ended up working out, but Pike's still in the doghouse.
Kyle, I know you have to leave us a little earlier tonight, but I want to get your quick thoughts on this relationship. And then I have two more quick questions you'll do in a rapid fire.
Okay, sounds good. I love this moment. I love the relationship between the two. And I kind of liked how it was confrontational between them even before he went and turned Vulcan, because he was expressing his concern for Patel and everything she's been going through before that. And then when he goes all Vulcan and just says everything logically about, oh, well, she can't do this, she can't do that. And I just love how she explodes and how it actually pays off for her in the end. So, what is the truth? The truth is, always speak your mind with Vulcans.
Yeah, I think they don't, there's like a anti-zero like bullshit thing going on there. They just want you to say how it is. And I think that they respect that a lot more. So yeah. All right, Kyle, quick thing here I want to ask you is, Absolutely. First of all, and then after you leave, I'll get Haley's thing here, but who had the best hair, human Pike or 100% Vulcan Pike?
It's human Pike without a doubt. However, I believe Vulcan Pike could literally stab somebody with as much hair gel as in that and mousse is in that hair, because that's got to be stiff as a board.
Real quick, who is your show guest character MVP?
It's actually a grouping, because I thought this was the most fun part of the episode was Luann, Kirk, and Scotty. This was, and I would have made this my mission 4, because I thought the trio was so wonderful. And anytime you get Christina Chong and Paul Wesley together, they just have some chemistry, comic wise. That's outstanding. But to see that bond growing between between Kirk and Scotty too, and seeing it's something I've noticed in this season, especially in the last few episodes. They're growing that Kirk relationship with the classic crew members, and I think it's wonderful. And that was my favorite part of the episode, without a doubt.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Kyle. I know you got to leave a little bit earlier.
I've got a special assignment I got to go to. If I come back with pointy ears, make sure you have a serum that actually works. Because much like Kelly, I want to actually have the fun.
Well, I just want to say that if you come back with ears, I'm going to ride that for a while and see how you are podcasting other topics. So there you go.
That would be highly logical.
All right, brother. Thank you for coming on.
I am transporting out. Thank you, everybody.
All right, Haley, I got to ask you, who has the better hair here? Is it Captain Pike human or 100% Vulcan?
Oh, it's human Pike for sure. Vulcan Pike, you can't run your hands through it. Human Pike, I would just run my hands through that hair. It's just glorious. But the Vulcan Pike, that is some serious. I mean, it's probably hard.
I feel like if there was an anime, I feel like if there was an anime version or cartoon version of Pike, that's the hair you would see, of course, without the ears,
yeah, for sure, definitely. So
I'm gonna go with 100% human Pike, just because the way he's got that rocking with that little bit of a part in it, it does really good. But man, I tell you right now, I can't wait to see future Pike, Vulcan Pike cosplay, because I think some people are gonna have a lot of fun with that.
That would be fun.
Yeah. So I wanted to put this out there to you, Haley, if you had any other things you wanted to discuss, because obviously with the mission reports, there's several other relationships here. I was thinking of Amy because we had, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, the brother has a relationship with
Beto.
Beto, that she wasn't a fan of him. And it looks like he leaves in this episode. If I remember correctly, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, how that kind of happened in that arc.
Yeah, I thought this was nice. Like, he comes aboard because the crew's gonna have shore leave, right? And I was kind of excited, not gonna lie, to see like the crew getting to have shore leave on a planet. Yeah. In Una's description, kind of sounded like a Risa, so to speak, a little bit. So, but anyway, so we don't get that. But, he comes aboard because he's asked Uhura out. And I love that interplay of that relationship where he didn't plan anything. He was just going to wing it. Yeah. And that's okay if you're like 10 dates in with somebody. You can wing it after that. The first date, you don't want to wing it. Like, don't do
Put some thought into it,
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's some wooing to happen here,
Right.
So, yeah.
And so, I love that as she becomes this Vulcan and she kind of comes back at him like, you didn't plan anything? No, like that's not going to work. And I didn't expect for him to like agree to go back and kind of have this mind meld, and he kind of becomes a little more tempered, essentially. And so that dynamic when Ortegas comes back and she's talking to the two of them about food and her brother's not acting like her brother, and it affected that relationship. And I love that Uhura sees that. Vulcan Uhura sees that like she affected a relationship outside of her, and it affected her relationship with Erica too. I think that was like a really good moment.
She was crying about it too,
and I think that's where she kind of realized that she didn't want to stay Vulcan, because they don't really show it, aside from La'an, they don't really show each person's really kind of like when they decide and them saying, I'm not going to do this. But I think for her, that was that moment. And so I loved that interplay, and then, Beto leaves because he was probably either aboard the Farragut. Maybe they put him on there to do some videos for them. Because again, I think, he's kind of creating, like they did with World War II when they would film and make the propaganda videos. and would do the little, like join, and Uncle Sam and all that kind of stuff. I think that's kind of his role right now. And so I think he just left to go do the same thing that he has been doing, but just somewhere else. So I really liked that. And yeah, Kirk and Scotty and La'an, I think that was great. I loved the bonding that happened of like Kirk and Scotty. Like you clearly see Scotty's like, oh, this is bad.
I like how he says, call me Jim. You saved my life,
Yeah. But, La'an with her talking and she's like, and Scotty just really so concerned. He's not saying anything, but he's like, oh God. And, they're trying to find her and he's calling her a poltergeist and she pops up out of nowhere. I thought it was great. Like, don't piss her off. Don't make her mad. She's going to kick your butt.
She was scary when she started like getting this little power trip going on.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, obviously they're going to be switched back eventually. And I liked how she was the holdout, because she was dangerous. But all it took was a sexy dance again, and a little bit of mind meld, Spocky horniness. Just gonna say, man, I was enjoying that dance. I was trying to find some really good pictures of that, but I couldn't. I just found like an in motion screenshot of that. But
yeah.
I don't know what it is. I can watch those people just dance over and over, and I would love for the actors to recreate that at like a Trek convention or something. That would be so fun to see that.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, they really, really seemed to, put some work into that. It was nice to see that they did it again. It wasn't like a one thing, So, yeah. But yeah, it was interesting to see how all of the relationships got affected. I would say most of them were negative. So it begs the question: was that a good choice to do that? Because I see why people might have issues with this episode in general. I mean, it would have been nice if maybe there was I guess the only positive Vulcan / non-Vulcan relationship we had, of course, with Una and Vulcan Doug. But I was kind of like, man, I got turned into a Vulcan and became an ass. I don't know. I can see how it kind of puts a negative thing on Vulcans, but maybe it's just there's a lesson there that you just don't turn humans into Vulcans. You can masquerade them, but of course, depending on where they're going. But not everyone, or not every species is good at being Vulcan. But I would like to have known what would have happened if someone did take to the serum. So that brings up
that would have been great.
Yeah, I want to get into that in a second. Let's have our cast and guest star discussion here. Who is your episode cast or guest star MVP? And I'm sorry, Amy, but also too, if you have, this is the Amy least valuable person, if you have that as well, because of what you said about Beta last time.
Oh no!
But I did want to give a shout out. I'm going to go ahead and say my favorite is definitely, oh God, I'm forgetting her name right now. I'm drawing a blank.
Pelia?
Yeah, Pelia. Sorry, Pelia. I thought she was great. She's my MVP just for reasons. Okay, first of all, she was. She says, "Oh, they're making me look bad," and then when she didn't get changed into the Vulcan, she's like, "Poop." I'm jealous. And there's that wonderful line that you alluded to earlier, where Dr. Mbega says, "I wonder if the serum didn't work on you because of your lanthanite." She says, "Honestly, I had the same problem with LSD in the 60s and the 90s and last July." And then also when she's in her room and she basically kind of calling her cave and she doesn't want people knowing what's going on. That's kind of like their way to kind of not necessarily conspire against them, but I thought that was a great scene there. So she is my MVP. Who is your MVP of this episode?
You know what? I'm going to give it to Spock this week.
Okay.
I think simply just because, he hasn't encountered this type of negativity in quite a while, right? Because he says it directly in his Spock way when he comes back from the away mission, saying he was reminded how many times that he was looked at as insufficient because he was a Vulcan. Yeah. And so, if you know your Star Trek lore and if you've watched, the movies and things like that, what he's gone through for being half Vulcan. And so I liked that he again was faced with that from people that have never looked at him that way. and the difficulty that he has handling that and trying to help them become back to, who they truly are and his friends and things like that. I really loved that. I loved in the beginning when he wants to sit with La'an and Una and they're having like a female conversation. Go away.
Yeah.
And then it comes back around and like, it turns out he's put clean socks in La'an's drawer and she doesn't know what to do with that. And so, but I love, we were watching it together and he sits down and he's eating his sandwich and she just thought that was so funny, like his expression.
Oh, the way he's like holding it in the corner, he's just going,
yeah, just like, and so I have to give it to him just because, I can only imagine, what he was going through and trying to deal with in having, these crew members turn completely Vulcan and treat him how he used to be treated, that he hasn't been treated in such a long time. And still like come out on the other end of the episode and still say, these are my friends, these are my crewmates. It is a good
Spock performance. That's a good choice. I like that. Yeah. And then of course he helps Lon out too. My runner-up would be, of course, Vulcan Doug. I mean, he was so good in that. Patton was just, what a great guest star moment there. I was wondering how he was going to play that. It was great. So
yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on? We didn't touch on Chapel and like how she treats everybody. What are your
she
thoughts on
cuts
that?
ties with like Kirby and and even,
everybody.
It felt like she broke up with Spock again. Without being together again. It was just like, go ahead and just stab him in the gut a little bit more there. That was a kick in the
She's got no more time for him. And you were talking about this and how people can kind of see this as a negative, this episode, but I don't think necessarily, it's not that Vulcans don't have relationships. It's not that they don't have friendships. They, I think this was kind of an extreme, right?
Yeah.
But on the same side of that coin, there are things that would be illogical. And depending on your focus as a Vulcan and what you find important, it would make certain things unnecessary and illogical to have, because Doug, obviously, he had a relationship with Una. So it's not that those types of connections aren't important and those healthy friendships and relationships with others in any capacity is not important to them. It's just what is your core and what is important and how do you factor that in? And so I really liked that, we see Chapel, she cuts everybody off because she's experimenting and she has no time to do anything else because she wants to try all these different things and do all these different things, which is who she is. Very first episode we see her, she's creating different serums for hyposprays to do different things, and that's kind of who she is. And so it's not crazy to say, okay, she becomes a Vulcan and she's able to logically and more efficiently use her time, that she would say, I don't have time for relationships because my time is focused on this. And, we get Pike and his, cleanliness and cooking and
right.
being efficient, right? He gets rid of the chairs in the conference room and, because they're not efficient. It takes too much time. And so it's all about efficiency. And you can factor in personal relationships to that, but it's a matter of how you do it. So
I like how they all like got back into their, we just went on a Vulcan, hardcore mission and then came back and they're wearing the same outfits.
Yes.
Those are really good points, Haley. And you reminded me of something that I felt like, and I don't know if they filmed it and they cut it out, but I felt we were cheated out of a very, very funny scene. I think they should have shown the scene where they went to the conference room as Vulcans, knowing they were going to be approached about turning back to humans, and then removing them all the chairs from the conference table, and then actually having the Vulcan discussion of why they should stay Vulcan.
Oh my gosh.
Great. Can you imagine that?
Yes. Fly on the wall. Where was Beto's camera at that moment?
Oh, I know, right?
Seriously. That would have been fantastic.
Let's go ahead and wrap things up here. All right, Haley, give me your final thoughts on 4.5 Vulcans. And by the way, if anyone is watching here, we got some viewers there. Feel free to throw up a comment or what you think in the chat, and we'll share it. So, what say you, Haley? I mean, we've gone through 8 episodes now of this 10 episode season here, and we've seen some funny stuff. We've seen some really serious stuff. How's the ride going for you? And then let me know how you feel about this episode.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the ride. There's no episode that I can say that I haven't liked. And I will say I am kind of ready. We've had quite a few comedic episodes and fun episodes, right? But again, this one also taught a lesson, even if through humor, because that's always the case. I am thinking, and I'm kind of ready for it to get a little serious, because Star Trek always kind of was, even despite the humor. So
Right.
I'm intrigued as to see what's going to happen in the last 2 episodes. And I'm also very sad. We only have 2 more episodes, and then we have to wait for season 4. It's so frustrating.
Yeah,
but
we have a full season of season 4, and then a smaller version of season 5 from the news that I heard. So
yeah,
we're gonna get another probably like 15 or 16 episodes, I think it is, after the season. And it's it did mean, if you had more to say, I didn't want to stop you.
no, yeah.
Okay.
But this episode, fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, really great episode. If you're on the fence about it, give it another try and just kind of see.
I think people are going to warm up to this. I understand. I mean, just like other fandoms, but Star Trek fan criticism can go pretty hard and deep and fast. But I think people will warm up to it. But I could see people later on going, "God, that one's not good." But I think that the cast of Star Trek Strange New Worlds has definitely reached a certain core with us as fans, and as one of the more entertaining and well-rounded cast and crew members. I mean, you think about it too, it's quite an accomplishment that I think Star Trek Strange New Worlds has done, compared to what we've seen from like late 80s, early 90s Trek, where you had a full 22, 24 episodes to try to round out a lot of these, and you were succumbed to, a lot of questionable episodes that weren't just good in general. But some of these relationships took, full seasons and seasons and a half to kind of happen, but they had a lot more, stories to tell for those reasons back in those days. But I really liked this episode. It was refreshing. It was the, on a personal level, it was something I really needed. I was stressing out that week for stuff, and I was happy to just jump into this, and was wondering what I was going to get. I'm like, oh, man, I really, really needed that tone. I needed that humor, and I just needed that. And that's what I got from this episode. So it's a lot of fun. Well, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Right. This is the Union Federation podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, X. Please check out also our Facebook group for our Union Federation. We talk, of course, and share a bunch of fun stuff regarding Star Trek and the Orville. We still talk in Orville, and make sure you go back and check out our recent Orville limited episode series, where we highlighted all of the main cast members and did a fun episode where we talked about all the guest stars and Star Trek alumni. So make sure you check that out. Where can we reach you nowadays, Haley? What's going on with you?
You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. I'm at Trekkie01D. I was super excited. I jumped on that Blue Sky like really early, so I got my same handle. So
you were the first person I know that got into Blue Sky. So and then you got us. I think you actually sent us like invites too. Or
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you doing that. You can find Kyle on X and Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom, and AKyleW on Discord, at KSport16 on Letterboxd, and Blue Sky AKyleW. Find Miss Amy Nelson on Instagram at Amy Nelson 522. She's also on Blue Sky. You can look at Counselor Amy, and you can also check out BQN Podcast on Blue Sky as well. And you can find BQN on Instagram and also their Facebook group at BQN Collective. My name is Kevin. You can find me at Spartan_Phoenix on all of the socials, including on Blue Sky at Spartan Phoenix. And so we appreciate everyone's support there. Also, too, if you want, give us a shout out over at TeePublic. You can get a Union Fed T-shirt, any color you want, including the red shirt version as well. Or you can get this version that I have on here as well. Supports Fandom Podcast Network, so we appreciate that. This has been episode 225 of Union Federation, discussing Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 8, 4.5 Vulcans. Haley, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. All right.
Thank you.
Live long and prosper, as we always say. And we are, without a doubt, the weirdest ship in the fleet. We'll see you guys next week live here on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. We will please check in with us, subscribe, and you'll get notifications. We're shooting, of course, for 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern for the next week's episode. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.